They did. Kaiman just didn't understand the nuances and the angles of politics in a way that speaks to his goodness of his character, but it doesn't say much for his acumen. And Kaiman was brought down. Now, the man who brought him down and who will succeed him is the greatest of the Athenians. You thought Themistocles and Cimon were something? This man is a combination of the two. His name is Pericles, P-E-R-I-K-L-E-S. Pericles. I've often wondered if I had the ability to bring someone back from the dead and just spend an evening over cocktails with them, just talk, who would it be? My first choice would be Gaius Julius Caesar. And I think my second choice would probably be Pericles. A remarkable man. Brilliant. The intellect. Philosophic genius. Master of literature and poetry. Military genius. A man's man who was positively elegant. Pericles. We have a bust of him, two actually. He was a rather attractive man, not movie star handsome, but an attractive man. But where his great attraction lay was in his ability to address a crowd. He could hold them in the palms of his hand, have them mesmerized, and when he spoke, it was as if he had magic. The most brilliant orator of the Greeks ever produced, including even Demosthenes, considered to be the greatest. Pericles was born. Now, he is going to transform Athens through the sheer force of his personality as well as his mind. For one thing, he is going to rebuild Athens. You remember, Athens had been destroyed by the Persians. It had been somewhat rebuilt. But Pericles is going to turn it into the most beautiful city, with one exception, the world has ever known. The only city that could eclipse Athens in terms of sheer beauty and magnificence was Constantinople. In that year of Constantinople's season, in case you wonder, it would be around the year 1060, about 1,000 years ago. Constantinople was a jewel in the sunset. Athens was toast. They said of it that Pericles founded the city of brick, and he left it a city of marble. I guess the greatest testament to Pericles was the construction of the most famous building in the world, certainly the most recognizable, and it's on the highest hill in the city of Athens, which is called the Acropolis, meaning literally the high Acropolis city, the high city, the Acropolis. He commissioned his great friend, Phidias, P-H-I-D-I-A-S, Phidias, to construct a temple to honor Athens' patron goddess, Athena. And that temple is called what, please? The Parthenon. The Parthenon. P-A-R-T-H-E-N-O-N. The Parthenon. It is majestic. Phidias was an architect and an engineer and a sculptor, ladies and gentlemen, who He was all three. And he was probably the greatest sculptor in history. The only person that you would ever offer as a challenger to Phidias would be Jacques Lorenzo Bernini. And I asked once an art historian at Oxford University, I said, of the two, who would you consider greater? And I had no sooner gotten the question out of my mouth when he answered me, Phidias, of course. Yes. Indeed. Phidias. Thank you. An Oxford Don, Michael Grant, Sir Michael Grant. And he had had that from Lord Kenneth. Who was the great British art historian of the latter part of the 20th century? Lord Kenneth Clark. Lord Clark. Oh, yes. Phidias, of course. Thank you. That's what I was about to say. Two words right out of my mouth. Stuffed them right back down my throat, as a matter of fact. Let me give you a suggestion, if I may. You want to go to Europe, of course. And once you've done the places that you think you should do, Madrid, Paris, you want to be sure that you go to Vienna, which is known as the city of dreams. Vienna, wonderful. And then the other place that you don't want to miss is London. London is sort of like a pipe in the sleeves. It just fits. And everyone in London is so civic and polite and generously kind. London is, it embraces you. And you won't want to leave. Now, what I wanted to recommend that you do is go to the British Museum. It's in the Bloomsbury district of London, which is an old district, and slightly shabby, but charmingly old shabby. But some of the great landmarks are there, including the British Museum, and including the Hotel Savoy, arguably the most famous hotel in the world, the Savoy, built by Thomas Gourlay Carter, who was partners with William S. Gilbert and Sir Arthur Sullivan. Gourlay Carter Theater, Gilbert and Sullivan Office was formed like this, premises. In any event, in the West Wing of the British Museum is a room that's about 3 times the size of this room, maybe 2.5 times this size, a little higher, ceiling, and beautifully appointed. And you walk in, and there on the wall are about 40 rectangular pieces of marble that have been mounted all around, and they make up what is called the frieze of the Parthenon, that temple to Athena. See, the temple has a gabled roof like this, and it's a rectangle supported by columns all the way around the interior. So as the roof comes down, it then goes to the column. But there is a rectangular strip that spans the entire edifice of the Parthenon, and that's called the frieze. Well, 400 years ago, in a war in which the Greeks were involved, some fool, I think it was a Venetian shipmaster, lobbed a cannonball into the Parthenon, which was being used as an ammunition depot, and it blew the temple to pieces. And what you see of it today is as best it will Trieste then, which was in pieces, rectangular pieces, but set very closely together, it looked like a continuum.